In the previous video, we exported from SketchUp three images, and I have them here saved on my computer. And here's the first one, an edges view that is only showing line work, a textures view which is only showing textures, and lastly a shadows view which is only showing shadows. So what we want to do is we want to bring each of these images into Photoshop. So I'm going to just minimize this. I've just created a brand new Photoshop document. The document is 17 inches wide by 11 inches high. The resolution is 300 pixels per inch, and the background is transparent. And you'll notice that on my image here, I have the gray and white checkerboard, and that indicates that my background layer, or my layer 1 in this case, is transparent. So from here, we can bring in our three images. Okay, I'm going to start by going to File, and then Place. Your version of Photoshop may say Place Embedded. Either one is correct though. Hit Place, and a window will come up, and I'm going to start with my textures. Select it and hit Place. And you will notice that my image comes up on my screen here, and there's a big X running through it. That X indicates that I am in the middle of the transform tool. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to transform or move this object at all, because I want each of the three layers, each of the three images that we're going to bring in, I want them to lay exactly on top of each other. I want them to register with each other exactly. So all I'm going to do is hit the Enter key to get out of the transform tool. And you'll notice that I have now my first layer is textures perspective. Now I'm going to proceed and do the same thing with the edges file. So I'll go File, Place, and this time my edges. And again, I have the X running through my image. I'm just going to hit Enter, and I'm good. And now I have two layers here, textures and edges. You'll notice though that I can't see the textures, the edges. If I turn the edges layer off, I can see textures, but the edges layer is obscuring the textures layer. And I can resolve that by changing the blending mode of the edges layer so that the layers below the edges layer can be seen. By default, my blending mode is normal, and I'm going to change it to multiply. And as soon as I do that, you'll notice that now I can see both. I can see the line work, the edges, and I can also see the textures. So that's great. That's exactly what I want. Now we're going to do the same thing with the shadows. So I'll go up to File, Place, or Place Embedded. I'll go to my shadows, hit Place, and you'll notice the big X running through. That means that by default it's in the middle of the transform tool. I just want to hit Enter, which I'm doing right now. And again, my shadows layer is obscuring my edges and my texture layers. If I turn my shadows layer off, I can see my other layers below it. When I turn my shadows layer on, it's obscuring it. If I change the blending mode of the shadows layer, then I can see the layers below it. So my blending mode for the shadows layer is normal. I'm just going to click that little button, and I'm going to change the blending mode to multiply. Now I can see shadows, I can see line work, and I can see textures. Since we're here, I do have this strange shadow that's obscuring a part of my image that I'm not really too fond of. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of it. And all I really need to do is just erase it from the shadows layer. So I'll just make sure that my shadows layer is the current layer, is highlighted. And then I will go over to my eraser tool. And when I move my eraser tool over my image, I sort of get this little circle with a slash through it, that is sort of a do not enter symbol. And when I click on it, I get an alert message that says the smart object must be rasterized. And that is perfectly okay and normal. I'm just going to hit OK. And you'll notice now that my cursor is the eraser tool, and I can change the size of my eraser by moving the square brackets, the left square bracket and the right square bracket. I could just tap them to change the size of the eraser. So now I'm going to erase this piece of shadow. Now I want to make sure that I'm on my shadows layer, because if I'm on my textures layer or my edges layer, then I will erase textures or edges. And I don't want to do that. I only want to erase shadows. So I'll just go over here and clean up and get rid of those shadows. And I'm good. This is the beauty of having each of these things separated, so that I can manipulate and turn various functions on and off, and I have a lot of control over my model. And that's it. From this point, you can just start to begin rendering and refining and turning this into a finished perspective rendering.